Sunday Clubbers, it's Gloria Good News, back again with another spectacular episode of KMPCSCTV. I hope you're all well and enjoying your half-term break. I know I am. Hasn't it been great in the past while to see so many acts of kindness from Captain Tom, our fantastic NHS workers, people working hard in our supermarkets, to those making sure people aren't hungry and alone. Also, the simple kind act of putting your rainbows in your windows. It just shows that being kind can make a real difference, and it really pleases God. That's what this week's story is all about. Sam and Beth will also be sharing with us, and we'll be having one more crack at our memory verse. Ricky Kirk will be back with a quiz. So without further ado, over to you, team.
Hi boys and girls. It's so great that you can be here today to hear another amazing story from the Bible. Today's story is from the Old Testament. It's from the 8th book of the Bible, which is called Ruth. Not surprisingly, it is a story about a girl called Ruth, but it is also about a few other people as well. You'll find out who they are in a moment. At the time when our story takes place, there were lots of people who were living their own way instead of God's way. The Bible tells us at this time, people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. However, there were still some people who followed God, and our story is about some of these people. The main people in our story are Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz. These people show strong character in the time in which they are living. I wonder what it means to show strong character. Well, it really means to have good qualities on the inside that other people can see through the way we behave. Qualities like being fair, kind, trustworthy, being honest and patient, and by following God's ways and not our own. Ruth, Naomi and Boaz show strong character in our story today. Let's find out how. Our story comes from Ruth chapters 1 and 2. Once there was a man called Elimelech. He had a wife whose name was Naomi, and they had 2 sons called Mahlon and Chilion. There was a terrible famine in the country of Bethlehem where they lived, so they decided to move to a different country called Moab. During their time in this new place, some sad things happened to this family. Elimelech, the father, died. Naomi's 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, grew up and got married to girls called Orpah and Ruth. But some time later, they also died, leaving Naomi, Ruth and Orpah on their own. I'm sure they missed the husbands they had lost very much, and for a time their lives were very difficult and full of sadness. In these days, it was hard for girls to live without a husband or father to take care of them. Naomi needed to come up with a plan. Can you remember where Naomi and Elimelech lived at the very start of our story? Yes, you're right. They came from Bethlehem. What else do you know about Bethlehem? Yes, right again. Many years later, Jesus would be born here. Remember that for the end of the story. So, Naomi had to come up with a plan, and Naomi's plan was to return to Bethlehem to see if she had any relatives left there that could help her and Ruth and Orpah. The 3 women started out on the road back to Bethlehem. On the way, Naomi stopped and made a kind offer. Even though it would mean she would end up on her own, she told Ruth and Orpah to turn and go back and to find new husbands to look after them in their own country. Both girls said no, that they wanted to stay and journey on with Naomi. But in the end, only Ruth decided to keep going with Naomi. Ruth showed great loyalty and kindness towards Naomi by putting Naomi's needs above her own. It cost Ruth something to be kind. She had to leave the country she had lived in all her life and leave her own mother and father to go with her husband's mother. It would have been much easier for Ruth to stay in Moab. But the Bible tells us that instead of choosing to turn back, Ruth said to Naomi, "I will go wherever you go and live wherever you live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." So Naomi and Ruth arrived back in Bethlehem just at the beginning of harvest time. Boys and girls, I'm sure you have learnt about harvest in school or church before. Harvest is when the food crops are gathered in. They are then sold for money and made into food to eat. Do you remember I told you at the start of our story that it would be about 3 people of strong character? Ruth, Naomi, and who else? Yes, you are right, Boaz. We are about to meet Boaz in our story. Boaz lived in Bethlehem and he owned a lot of fields. This made him very rich, but he was also a good man. One day, Ruth decided to try and make some money for her and Naomi by gathering in some of the leftover harvest, the crops that the other workers dropped or didn't want. Ruth ended up working in a field that belonged to Boaz. While she was there, Boaz arrived and greeted the harvesters. Boaz noticed Ruth and asked one of the head workers who she was. The head worker told Boaz that Ruth was the girl who had left her home country and come with her mother-in-law Naomi. He also told Boaz how hard she had been working to provide food for herself and Naomi. This is the part of the story where we learn through Boaz's actions that he was a very kind man. He told Ruth to stay in his field where she would be safe. He gave her water to drink and provided her with a good lunch. He made his workers leave grain behind on purpose so that she would have enough. He told her that she could come back for all the days of the harvesting. When Ruth asked Boaz why he was being so kind to her, a person who wasn't even from Bethlehem, he told her that he knew how kind she herself had been towards Naomi and that she would be rewarded. When Ruth took the grain and leftover lunch home to Naomi, Naomi was amazed by the kindness of Boaz. Boys and girls, we are going to stop our story there, but I have to tell you that like all the best stories, this one has a very happy ending. Boaz and Ruth end up getting married and having a son who they call Obed. The Bible tells us Naomi loved this grandson and took great care of him. Remember all the people Naomi had lost at the start of the story? God had blessed Naomi now with a new family in this part of her life. Boys and girls, lots of you will know about David in the Bible. David who fought Goliath and grew up to be a king. Well, Obed was David's grandfather. And this is important because we know that Jesus came from the family of David. So in a way, Ruth and Boaz's kindness helped to bring about God's plan for his people through Jesus. Although Jesus was God's son, on earth he grew up a descendant of this kind family. I wonder if you know exactly what kindness is. Kindness means to notice and care about the needs of other people and to help them. Not because we are looking for a reward, but just because it is the right thing to do. Sometimes it can even cost us something to be kind because it means putting others' needs before our own. But the family in our story were blessed through their kindness. That means that something good came about in their lives through their kindness, something that made them happy. Ruth's kindness led her to Bethlehem, with Naomi, and in the end, she was blessed with a happy life. Maybe you have some ideas of ways you can be kind in your life. Why don't you talk to your grown-up about this now? Or if you are watching this on your own, maybe you could write some ideas down on a piece of paper. Did you think of any? Maybe you thought of something like helping your adult in your home with the dishes, or making a card for someone you know that is sick or lonely. I know you will have thought of great ideas. Ruth told Boaz that his kindness had comforted her. Isn't it amazing that you can do that for someone? You can comfort someone with your kindness. Being kind to someone else also makes us feel good on the inside. In that way, we are blessed as well. Sometimes we can forget to be kind. Remember that God can help build up the good qualities we want to have on the inside. Let's ask God to help us now by praying to Him. Dear God, thank you that you are a kind God. Thank you that Boaz, Ruth and Naomi show us that we can be kind in our everyday lives. Please help us to notice the needs of other people. Thank you that the story of Ruth also points us to Jesus. Thank you for your great love and kindness for your people throughout history and for us. Amen.
Phew, that was a close one, little guy. Good thing Mum didn't see you, or you could have ended up squished or drowned. Hi, Sam. Hiya. Look at the spider I saved. Ah! I'm scared of spiders, Sam. Oh, sorry, Beth, but Mr. Lots of Legs won't hurt you. He's just a harmless daddy long legs. I found him in my cupboard and I wanted to adopt him, but Mum wouldn't let me. I don't blame her. So I did the next best thing. I'm returning him to his natural habitat in the garden.
Well, that's very kind of you. God likes it when we're kind to his creatures.
Goodbye, Mr. Lots of Legs. Have a wonderful life.
Sam, that reminds me how God looks after us.
He certainly does. Maybe that's why he likes it when we're kind to others.
Like when you mowed Mrs. Nicholson's lawn. She couldn't do anything for you, but you were kind to her anyway.
She did give me some delicious chocolate chip cookies. Oh, those were the best chocolate chip cookies I've ever had. Hey Beth, I have a really good idea.
What?
Maybe we can make a list of all the people we can be kind to, like my sister, my mum, my pastor, my teacher.
That's a great idea, Sam. And don't forget to add Mr. Lots of Legs to that list.
Don't be silly, Beth. Mr. Lots of Legs isn't a person. I'll never forget you, Mr. Lots of Legs.
Kindness comes in many forms, Sam.
I guess so. Even spiders need a little kindness now and then.
I never thought I'd be saying this, but I think you're right.
Hello again. We're going to go through our memory verse once more, which if you remember comes from Joshua 1 verse 9, and it's about being courageous. So the memory verse again was, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So we're going to do that together. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1 verse 9. And again. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1 verse 9. And one more time. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1 verse 9. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ricky, and I am going to take today's Sunday Club TV quiz. Now, Before we get started, don't worry if you haven't been around the last few weeks. Hopefully the questions that we have, you'll be able to give them a go and be able to answer them anyway. What we've done is we're going to answer some questions from the last 3 weeks of Sunday Club TV. And down the bottom left, you can see that there's a little timer. So whenever we click on that, then it means that the blue line is going to go round. It's going to give you 7 seconds, and then it's going to go red whenever it's time to answer. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to repeat the questions, but you will probably be able to press pause because this is pre-recorded, and that will maybe give you a bit more time to answer the question. So let's dive straight in. Hi everyone, I'm Ricky and welcome to Sunday Club TV Quiz Time. This morning we're going to look back on the last couple of weeks of Sunday Club TV and have a chance to have a bit of a quiz. Don't worry if you haven't been around the last few weeks, because the questions that we have are probably going to be okay for you to give them a go, even if you haven't been following along with us. In the bottom left corner, you'll see a timer, which should be blue, and it takes 7 seconds to go the whole way around. And once it turns red, then we'll move on to the next question. Now, if you need a bit longer, you can probably pause it because it's pre-recorded, so we'll not be able to go over the questions again, but you can be in control of that. So let's dive in. So what did Rahab do to the Israelite spies? What do you think? Okay, time up. Well, she hid them on her roof under a pile of flax plants. She was really brave. Why did she do that? She wasn't an Israelite. Why did she hide some Israelites on her roof? Well, she knew it was God's plan to give them the land to the Israelites, even though she wasn't one of them. She had heard about this, and she believed that this was the right thing to do. So, could God use us like he used Rahab? What do you think? Well, yes, he could, totally. He might not use us in exactly the same way as Rahab, but as we read our Bibles and pray and listen for God's voice, listen to other Christians around us, just keep on the lookout, because he has amazing plans for your life. Now, whenever the Israelites moved into the Promised Land, they had no more enemies to worry about. Phew! Finally, they could rest. What do you think? True or false? Well, the answer is true. Oh, that's right. It's false. Even though they've been traveling for hundreds of years, going through all this difficulty, they arrived in the Promised Land. They still, unfortunately, had enemies that wanted to attack them. So, Delilah cut Samson's hair, which meant that he lost his strength. But what did the Philistines do to him? So the Philistines were the Israelites' enemies. What did they do to Samson? Oh, they blinded him. It sounds really gory and gross, but they blinded him. So here's a man who had been completely harmed, even by Delilah, and then also by the Philistines. But how can what we learn from Samson help us in our lives? What do you think? Well, no matter what happens, God stays with us. Samson wasn't always faithful to God, but God was always there and faithful to him. And he realized that in the end. And it's the same for us today. God is with us when we trust in Jesus, even whenever we don't recognize him and notice him. But he wants us to follow him. Now, today's story was about Ruth and Naomi. What happened to their husbands? Well, unfortunately, they died. So Ruth and Naomi went to live with a man called Boaz. And what do you think? Why do you think Boaz and Ruth were so kind to others? This is our last question. Okay, time up. Well, they wanted to show others the kindness that God had shown to them. Even though they had real hardship in their lives, like really tough times, God had been faithful to them, and they wanted to show that they were so thankful by being really kind to other people. Not because people would like them, but because they were doing what God wanted them to do. So that's the end of our quiz, not just for today, but for the whole of Sunday Club TV. I've really enjoyed doing this. It's been really great that you've been able to enjoy it too. I really hope we can do this again in person soon once we get back to church after lockdown. But I hope you have a great day,